Today we're going to take a look at 5 different old school exercises from the 1800s. I mean real old school historic exercises digged out from the early strength training books that were written at the time. So these exercises are from Eugen Sandow, who has been kind of touted as the father of modern bodybuilding because he was the first person, at least as far as I know, who started to talk about mind-muscle connection and isolation training. So he truly revolutionized the training back in those days. And these exercises I think are very interesting because they're quite different from what you see nowadays. You'd almost never see anyone utilize these exercises. And I want to show you some incredible points about training that you can really understand once you do this properly. So let's start from the crucifix curl. First of all, what Eugen Sandow always emphasizes before you start any of these exercises, you need to set a position of attention or posture of attention. So this is the same, very similar actually what we use, for example, in the military in Finland. So the position of attention, you put your heels together, you stand up straight, shoulders are naturally down and a little bit back, your chest is up, your neck is straight. So this is the starting position that you always utilize, almost always utilize in these exercises. This already is a big deal. Most people will be, we're just standing straight. You need to understand that this is already a refined exercise methodology. Even in Athlete 20XX method, where I teach this precision training methodology, we're always setting a posture before the exercise. Because the posture, to a large extent, really determines what kind of form are you even utilizing. And it's the first fundamental thing. If you have a bad posture and you do whatever, you're going to be compromised. Your results will be compromised. So the posture is a huge thing. And this is something that Eugen Sandow also realized. So he set this attention posture or position. And then the first exercise, the crucifix curl here, is such where you put your arms wide to your side, biceps up. And then you could perform either alternating curls or you can perform at the same time. These are the 2 variations. These were specifically meant to be done with light dumbbells. I would say that this 5 kilo that I'm using is just on the limit of being too heavy. I'd say 3 to 4 kilos would be good, but this is what I have here and it's still possible to do like so. Consider if I would just do this exercise like this way. Very little work that I'm actually doing. And this is how most people would think that this exercise works. They will try it, throw their weights a little bit, notice there's not much resistance at any point. They think that it doesn't work. But Eugen Sandow was a big proponent of mind-muscle connection. He has this quote, "Exercise indeed without the conjunction of mind with it is of no use." This means that if you're not utilizing your mind when you're exercising and training and really focusing on the muscles that you're trying to target, you're getting very, very few benefits, if any benefits at all. So the mind is the key to unlocking all the results that you can get from the training. This is why, even with lighter dumbbells, when I'm doing this, I go slowly and I squeeze my muscles and I extend my muscles and I squeeze my muscles and I extend. You know, in the book he writes, for example, that this exercise trains triceps. This direction here is completely passive, right? So how can it train triceps? It trains triceps because every single time you were to squeeze and use your arm, now it's contracted partially my triceps at this position, and then you would curl back and squeeze again. So this Eugen, he did not even give repetitions. He said that perform the exercises until you feel a fatigue, until you feel this congestion, this tiredness in the muscle. So there was no counting even numbers. You were to perform the exercise and you really felt the results. This is exactly the same stuff that I'm also applying in my own training and in my training methods. You need to feel the results happening. Let's do the exercise number 2. And this is the reverse crucifix curl. By the way, these names I came up with myself because in the book they're just named exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3, and so on. But these names I think will be a good clarification. So in this one, the instruction were to hunch forward, bend your upper body a little bit, look downwards, and then you raise the weights to your armpits, and then you start to perform the curl from there. So again, here biceps work, but this emphasizes the triceps a lot more. This position right here is essentially a tricep extension and a partial bicep curl. Again, notice the position of attention otherwise. My heels are together, toes a little bit out. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And that was 2 kilos of weight. And I'm feeling really heavy. So it really is about how you're doing it. Again, I can be this way. Do you think this does anything? Of course not. So if you're wondering why these exercises are like this way, why they maybe look a bit odd, they look odd because there's a very specific way you're supposed to do them that makes them actually work. The other interesting thing here is, if you notice, in all of these exercises, of course there were basic curls as well, but these both exercises, they emphasize also the lateral deltoid, so you're keeping the arms pointed to the sides. So the idea was not that training the deltoid takes away from a bicep or a triceps. The idea was just to train, that you get to train in one exercise, your deltoid, your biceps, and your triceps. So you get this like a threefold benefits within one exercise. And then we're gonna move on to the wrist exercises. So this is also where we really truly get to see isolation happening. So the first one is the crucifix wrist rotations. And once again, we take the arms to the side. Now here, I will be rotating my wrists. So this is very important. It's very easy to move the shoulders and biceps a lot. So I find this hard to really not to move the bicep at all, but just trying to, really the goal is to try to keep the bicep as pointing upwards as possible. And then you would just rotate the forearm. You can go to the different directions here. So if you have not tried this, I really highly recommend you to try and see for yourself just how hard it is to isolate just the wrist motion, same as it is really difficult to just isolate, for example, even the shoulder rotation here. So on that time in the 1800s, when probably almost no one was doing any isolation training, that is a huge deal. That is very revolutionary and really tells about the accuracy and precision that also, for example, Eugen was really applying in his training. Because nowadays, isolation training is like, yeah, everyone knows we do some biceps or some triceps, you know, pull downs or whatever. So isolation is like the norm in bodybuilding circles. But this is not the case when we go back over 100 years ago. So the next one is again for the forearms, and it's the same position, but the variation here is that I'm going to be performing wrist curls. Here I'm not entirely sure, it was not specified in the book whether the arm should be this way, like neutral, or in the supination position, but it doesn't make that much big of a difference. It's a very tough position, to be honest, to do the wrist curl here. Which either way you put it. And once again, I'm really putting effort into flexion and extension, flexion and extension. So once again, fantastic way, or actually quite a challenging way to really isolate those wrist movements. There's one more exercise here. These were all kind of feel like from the same series, holding the arms there, biceps, triceps, wrists. But again, we're going to be holding the dumbbells in front of us and then performing this type of fly motion. So this, according to Eugen, was to train the flexibility of the chest. So it's kind of a chest expansion exercise. You're really like spreading your arms wide open, opening this thoracic area. So again, same position here, But in the front position, in the photo, he's clearly a little bit rounded forward and then opening. So as I'm bringing here, it's very natural to have this protraction, a little bit flexion from the spine. And then when you open, you fully open that spine, open your scapulas, and open your shoulders to get that full chest open. So, boom, maybe this way. It's a very nice dynamic opening indeed for the chest. What I sometimes utilize in my warm-up is just like, for example, this way. So dynamic flexibility, people often do them for their legs, for instance, but you can do the same for even your chest. Boom, boom, boom. Also heavily trains the shoulders. All of these exercises, I mean, if you do all these 5 exercises, you're probably getting a workout for your shoulders that you've almost never had in your entire life. Very few people train their shoulders isometrically, let alone isometric training with some sort of arm movement applied with it as well. These exercises, like I said, I picked them because they're quite unique, they're different. A lot of people haven't seen them, and if they would see these exercises, I think they wouldn't really realize what they're about. So I really hope that after this video you understand a little bit more of these exercises, how to make them actually useful, and don't just look at them like, that was back in the day, hundreds of years ago, they didn't know what they were doing. This is vintage, it's outdated. These exercises, if you truly understand the methods and the principles that were applied, were so ahead of the time. I mean, they were ahead of time of most modern trainers nowadays. And even my own training, as I mentioned, the precision training methodology in the Athlete Twin XX, it has its roots on these training principles of mind-muscle connection that were laid out over 100 years ago. Through these very old school bodybuilders like Eugen Sandow, but also the Bronze era and Silver era bodybuilders were big. Even on the Golden era, Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. These guys still knew that there was really an art to training. And this really is one of the earliest history of that. I've been studying these old school methods for over 10 years and I've been very passionate about them. And I actually have a free lesson where I cover in very much detail the ribcage expansion. That was one of the keys of developing an old school physique. So if you're interested really to get authentic, accurate historical knowledge about these training methods, you can check out this free lesson. It's at the Internal Frame. Internalframe.com. You can find this. It's 100% free. You can join and get a good idea of one of the most important principles of old school trainers. That's it, guys. Stay strong.